I'm Dean Newlund, and welcome to the Business of Intuition, where I coach, facilitate, train, and speak on the hard science and meaningful experience of intuitive leadership in business, so you can make better decisions, forge real connections, and creatively solve problems to amplify your impact and simplify your life. Welcome to the Business of Intuition.
I read an article back in the early 2000s, and it was based on some research centered around a question that it asked many employees. Where do you go to get work done? Well, of course, you would think, I go to work to get work done. That's not at all what the research found. Most people didn't go to work. They were in their favorite room in their house that would be on a plane or a train or a Starbucks or some other place that they could focus on getting their work done. I found that fascinating. Well, fast forward, COVID hits, all of us were forced into having to be working away from our places of business. And a lot of us got used to it. And many of us got really good at it. And now the research is showing that there are certain types of productivity numbers that can be met if we simply have people working remotely versus working in an actual brick and mortar environment. And my next guest on the Business of Intuition really had some fantastic ideas about how do we be able to work with different styles. For example, the introvert versus the extrovert, which one is better apt to be productive at work or in a remote environment? How do we build in productivity and longevity for those of us who are working virtually or remotely so that we don't get burned out and lonely? And when is it appropriate to bring people into a face-to-face environment so that we get the socialization that we don't always get when we are in those sort of remote situations? So my next guest is named Sharon Koifman. And Sharon is just a high energy ball of just fun and love. I really had a great time with him. He is a remote management expert and author of the Amazon best-selling book, Surviving Remote Work. And he's president of his own company called Distant Job, a unique recruitment agency geared specifically for finding full-time remote employees who work from all over the world. And he just had some wonderful ideas about how to be able to increase the productivity and the longevity and be able to build trusting partnerships with your employees. Sharon Koifman on the Business of Intuition. Sharon, it is great to have you on the show. I know you hail from the beautiful city of Montreal, and we were chatting before I hit the record button about what a great city that is. So thanks for your time on the show. I wanted to get right into this discussion about remote work. I know we're going to talk a little bit about the management side and the employee side. A lot of companies, obviously, a majority of them had to go into lockdown during the COVID pandemic across the planet. And everybody was sort of forced into remote work and used to doing Zoom calls in our pajamas and our cats sitting on our laps and our kids being around a lot more and, footsteps away from the refrigerator to get our favorite, pecan pie or whatever. And now a lot of companies have
pecan pie. Yummy. Yeah, well, I didn't even, you just
I don't know. Sorry for throwing it. It's just what came to mind. I like raisin pie the best, but that's more like mincemeat pie.
Raisin pie? I've never tasted one like that.
No, you got to.
My God. Okay, I'm going to try that.
Is this a cooking show or what? Okay.
Oh my God. Who knows? Yes.
So anyway, a lot of companies obviously are reconsidering their remote work policies. I know a lot of companies we're dealing with are like, do we continue with sort of a flexible come as you go, or should we start bringing people back? And if so, how many days a week? Is it 2? Is it 3? Is it 4? And then, of course, there's some companies that aren't dealing with that at all. Everybody's remote, because we're all over the planet. And I think you're in that boat a bit.
Yes, sir.
What's the state of the union, my friend, regarding remote work? What are you reading? What are you sensing? Are more people coming back? Are more people saying, screw it, we're staying with remote work because the productivity is so much better?
if you were to do a TED Talk on the topic of remote work, what would your title be?
What would be my title be? The title would be productivity and longevity.
Ooh,
right? That would be my title. The state of affairs, the state of the union for where it comes to remote. I believe that in the short term, there is a lot of companies that are fighting to get their people back in the office. One of the reasons why they're fighting for it, because they don't know any better, right? That I really do believe that there is quite a lot of very successful companies. They've done things very well, that for 100 years, the concept of working was associated with the office. They're pretty old school and things work, and they make a choice to bring them back, to try to bring them back. Or they try to do the hybrid thing because they see that they don't have a choice, that there's too many quality people out there who are just saying, you know what? I like to work at home. And if you want me as an employee, you're going to have to compromise. But still, those old school managers are fighting it.
Okay, so I get that. And we don't know any better. We're going back to what it was like before. Maybe we haven't mastered the ability to manage people in a remote way. So it was one of those skills that we never really got good at. So let's go back to what we were, at least we thought we were good at with respect to working with people in the office. Is there a case to be made that if we are in the office face to face, we have a three-dimensional, I can actually touch you environment, that condition is easier to build trust within the social dynamic than over a two-dimensional box that is the way in which we communicate, say, through Zoom, WebEx, or Teams, or what have you?
So here's the deal. Look, when it comes to remote work, there is an extra effort that needs to integrate into your management process. But that extra effort should have always existed there in the first place. Because
with in-person work?
In-person work, right? Because the reality is that an average company, an average employee in an 8-hour shift produces an average of 2 hours and 53 minutes of work.
Hold the phone, Marky. Hold the phone. 2 hours and 53 minutes?
Yes, of work.
Wait a minute. Let me back up the bus. You're saying that the stats are coming out. This is incredible. That in an 8-hour shift at a physical environment, the actual production is 2 hours and 53 minutes.
Yes, absolutely.
Okay, and this is the time that you can swear privately in your own car, your own home.
Yes, something like that. Yes.
Wow. Now, wait a minute. Where the hell did you get that?
There was research done MIT Sloan. There was a lot of research. And it was called, what is the website called? The Work of a Friend. I need to get you the stats after. We can put it in the link. But it really, this is the stats. Yes. This is what I write in my book also. And the reason why we only produce 2 hours and 53 minutes of work is because of distraction. It takes us about 20 minutes on average. The exact amount was like 23 minutes on average to come back to focused work every time somebody distracts us. So it doesn't have to be mean.
Yeah. I mean, like if you get disrupted by an email and you're focused on writing something or doing something that requires a lot of mental energy, I've heard the same thing, 17, 20 minutes, somewhere in that time frame. So that I've heard that for a long time. I think you're onto that for sure.
So every time somebody taps you on the shoulder in an environment and says, hey, did you see the amazing version 3 of Garden of the Galaxy? 20 minutes, bang. It's 12 o'clock, you're in the middle of a project, but everybody's going to their favorite ribs lunch. You get distracted, bang. 5 o'clock, you need to go home to have dinner with your family. It takes more than 20 minutes because you have to come back the next day. This accumulates, and we seriously don't produce much because of that.
All right, so
in an office environment.
Let's play with this. This is really fascinating. So I have noticed that there are some styles, say your employee,
That's one of the groups that we're going to be talking about today, a remote employee, who actually get more distracted by being at home because of other things in their life that distracts them. Maybe it's not somebody tapping them on the shoulder talking about the latest Tom Cruise movie, but it's their kids, that's their dog, it's the refrigerator with that pecan pie, with the mincemeat pie, or the raisin pie, whatever. It's all of those other distractions that we are, and that they're much more social. They love to work in tandem with other people. What's the argument with those particular people?
So there's no question about it. First of all, kids, this COVID is over. Kids are going to school. The lunch, you still have lunch in the office. But, right, so first of all, it is possible to be productive in an office environment, beside the fact that most office environments are not productive. You're not going to tell the people around you to be quiet because you're working, right? It's just not social. I mean, the positive thing of working in the office, that is so social, but that social aspect is actually incredibly distracting. But if there are people that are not good to work, they're not good working at home. There's such thing called co-working spaces. There's such thing called private offices. Remote doesn't necessarily mean working from home. It means working in your most optimal working environment.
So, Sharon, are you an evangelist for remote work, or are you an evangelist for productivity?
Evangelist for productivity and mental health. So this is two important components, because it is productivity, but many people, when I give lectures to organizations, I notice that the people, when I go on conference and I'm a keynote speaker, I notice that other people always talk about production day to day. But happens is many of them become like those diet gurus that tell you how to lose weight today, but forget how to actually lose weight for the long runs. And the majority of the weight loss programs out there are not long-term solutions. And this is not a luxury that you can have in a work environment. You have to focus on productivity, but you really also need to focus on longevity. You need this production to happen in the long run, which most experts kind of tend to ignore, because they come in, they make a big change, people excited, people pumped, and nobody is ever talking about what is going to happen in 2 years from now. So if you want to focus on productivity in the long term, you need to focus on productivity and mental health of your employees.
Okay, again, I think I'm getting your point. It makes a lot of sense. And I wonder what your thought is regarding this longevity and this mental health piece. That what role does live interactions play within that?
So
maybe we're not productive with respect to right now, but we're socializing, we're connecting, we are brainstorming, which is not producing anything still. It's still wet clay, right? We haven't produced anything yet. We're still in that creative mindset. Are those not valuable? Are those not part of maybe even a mental health longevity perspective, that through the social interactions and participating in discussions and all of the things that go along with that, no, we didn't produce anything, but it set the stage for some really important product. And it set the stage for really important longevity with respect to mental health and culture.
So first of all, you're completely right. This is the biggest weakness of remote work, right? I believe that remote workers are more productive, and if done right, are happier. But if not done right, it could be a very miserable experience, and people could disappear into what we call remote la la land. So yes, the office environment has better social experience. When somebody is disheveled and somebody is not looking good, your colleagues can see that there's a problem and potentially come to your help. That's why an exceptional manager, whether remote or not, but more important, remote, gets intimate with their employees, gets to know them on a personal level.
Sure.
Right? This is more important in remote than an office environment, but I personally believe that an amazing remote manager is an amazing manager. And managers in an office can get a little more slack, because you get, like I said, you get to see when people are not doing well, but not necessarily producing. So a good manager or a good team of managers really get to know their people on a personal level. I judge my own management. I have on my 55 employee company, I have 5 managers, and I judge my managers by the fact that they know their own people on a personal level. Do they know their kids' name, their pet names? Do they know what favorite food they have? Because that is part of the experience. You got to sit down and have a chit chat, not about business, but people. And that's how you fix this little social problem. It's also an answer to many other questions that usually clients come to me and ask, how do you know that this person is not burnt out? How do you know if this person is producing? How do you know if this person needs their next raise or they're motivated? If you talk to them, you get that feeling. Any decently intuitive manager, by just talking about your favorite food and your kids, gets to see if the person is doing okay, is motivated in the team. And that's something that should be done in an office environment also, but you can sort of get away with it more. So that is key to the remote work.
So back to, so I want to get to the longevity piece here, but when it comes to the different kind of work a person does, for example, we have clients and they're having a different policy regarding return to work or remote work for those who are, say, in IT. These are people that are taking care of tickets. They are individually focused on their own tasks. There's a beginning, there's a middle, and the end. They're on to the next thing. It's kind of a production, right? And it's a production based on individual work. And therefore, there's not a whole lot of collaboration that is needed to be able to get the work done. So they kind of go like, why should I come back to work? I can be just as productive, maybe even more productive if I just stay where I'm at, which
a lot more productive. It's not even compared.
Okay, so I get that. So are you thinking that when it comes to teams, and I mean it in a real sense, meaning a group of people who are mutually accountable for a common goal that requires coordination, remote work?
Yes,
personally,
absolutely. First of all, this model of conference room physical brainstorming is not great. It's not great for multiple reasons. First of all, 98, like 4 out of 5 people are not necessarily listening. Now, this is not a statistic. This is just me throwing there. But there's so many people that are invited to a conference room that shouldn't be there, that they're not interested, they're not motivated. And it's just another way to waste their time and fulfill the management ego that everybody needs to come to a team. So most meetings are not effective. That's one thing.
25,000% agree. I get that. But is a bad meeting, whether it's remote or in person?
Well, so first of all, to brainstorming with 2 screens on a collaborative document is far more effective than a billboard and everybody throwing ideas. By the way, right? This is just the technology of everybody looking on one screen and seeing the document and can immediately put their input on it and check on the other screen with the information while having a quality Zoom technology. Please have good headset, have good microphones,
right.
Have good internet, which is surprisingly not obvious for everybody, but this is how you create Zoom exhaustion through the latency and the scratches and everything. But a 2-screen experience collaboration, in my opinion, with my team is way more effective. When we try to write a document together, when we're trying to talk about our advertising and marketing, the fact that everybody can insert and add comments on the same exact document, using technology is way better. I recommend that in a conference room, everybody should have a laptop and being able to enter instead of that one person that insert and think that he knows what everybody's saying.
And I struggle with this. I'm a facilitator of meetings, right? So this is I've done a lot of them online too. Especially when the COVID hit, we had to do everything that we would have done in person. We had to figure out a way of being able to replicate that on Zoom. And I think we did a pretty good job, and we still do occasionally. But there's something I have to say that I totally get what you're saying, about the productivity and about the fact that you can share screens and the fact that we can enter in information at the same time. And there is an attention span, or there's a fatigue that I think happens within a Zoom meeting that is different than if we're in a live setting. I think there's something kind of visceral about being able to, I know it's old school, but touch those old freaking flip charts and get people moving around and up off their feet because we're moving specifically to go to some other part of the room to work together and collaborate. So while I agree that there is some technological benefits, I also think that if you have a really good facilitator with a really good structure, that can be just as effective if you're in a face-to-face setting than if you're in a live setting, than in a Zoom setting.
So I'm not, first of all, great facilitator is key, right? So I'm not taking that away. I'm just saying, first of all, not everybody is an amazing facilitator. Not everybody has your specific awesome skills, right? You have to say average Joes coming in and want to collaborate. And from my experience, especially in an intimate work environment that everybody's already socialized and know each other on a deeper level, right? Sitting on there in Zoom, first of all, everybody needs to have the technology. Not everybody has two screens.
Right.
Not everybody has good microphones, right? But if you have the right technology, man, two-screen collaboration experience, for me at least, so I guess it's a personal, I don't know, sometimes majority of the stuff that I come with the science. But here I'm telling you on a personal level, I couldn't have it any. If I would be in a physical office, I would still insist that everybody has a laptop and sit and type and get their idea down. Yeah. Right? It's
I appreciate that. Yeah. And we had this very conversation just a couple of days ago. I was facilitating a 2-day retreat for a large university. And the question was, do we have laptops in the room or not? And we were kind of concerned, like, well, there was sort of the style of the group. And we thought, like, well, if we bring out the laptops, does that mean they're going to start doing work? If things start, whether they're going to get distracted by their emails. All of a sudden, now we have something that comes up, and now we got to respond to it. Oh, I was working on this. This is what I'm doing with my group. Oh. All of a sudden, and now that distraction starts happening. Like, now we got to So now the facilitator doesn't even know people are distracted because we see heads down on screens. And we think like, oh, they must be working on whatever project we're working on. And in fact, they're not. They're actually start doing their emails and stuff. So that was what we decided we would limit.
And you're completely right. So, but that is in a physical conference. And you see, especially in a tech physical conference room where always the techie guys are sitting there. Yeah, I'm listening to you. Yeah. And it must, please keep in mind, Dean, you are an expert. You are a person that comes in for 2 days. People are pumped. People are excited. People are motivated. And you're creating an experience. Not every meeting is a meeting with Dean. And it's not, you can't compare it to the average. So yes, sounds like what you're doing worth that physical experience. You're a little bit of the Tony Robbins. I seen Tony Robbins on Zoom and I seen Tony Robbins physically. It's not the same thing, right? It's not the same thing. That's not the everyday work, the way the everyday works functions, right? And I find that I just, when you see the document in front of your face, it's, in my opinion, and you can input your own content into it. I find that you get a lot stronger collaboration on an average non-super Dean day.
Yeah, you're being too kind. Fair enough. I accept your argument. So when it comes to the person who's working remote, you mentioned something about longevity and the sustainability of being able to work in that area. Talk a little bit more about how managers can help those people in a longevity perspective. There's sometimes I think that I know people are off doing their work and we have once a week meetings, but I really don't know how they're doing, and you mentioned that one idea was making sure you have those conversations. Your example was, how your kids, what do you love to eat? What are things that people can do to really build the trust, build the culture, have a sustainable workforce that maybe most of them or all of them are remote?
Look, trust, you mentioned trust because trust is my soul, is my raison d'être, as we call it here in Montreal. It is the building trust with your employees is one of the most neglected thing that majority of managers focus on. And it's so powerful. And when I'm talking about trust, I'm not talking about the trust of honesty or the trust of competency. I'm not talking about if I lend you money, I trust you pay me back, or if I give you a project, you'll do a good job. Those are good trust. You need to have trust in your employees. But the trust that I'm talking about is that trust that people have in you, that they can tell you whatever that is on their mind without consequences. I call it the partner effect. Why the partner? Because if I don't know if you have a partner in your venture, but if you have a partner, you depend on that person to give you input, to tell you when you're doing something completely wrong, to completely demolish your idea if it's not great, and restart and work with you and being your partner, being your co-pilot. There's actually a business case about South Korean airline back in the 80s. They were the scariest airline to go on. They would crash all the time because the co-pilot was too afraid to actually, because they had this submissive culture environment there, and the co-pilot was actually afraid to tell their pilot when they were doing something wrong. And when they were telling them, it's like, sir, officer, please, could you maybe potentially not run into that mountain, right? And then you crash into that mountain, right? And it was dangerous. And it took an American CEO to fix all that and says, this is crazy, right? But I feel sometimes that the relationship that most bosses have with their employees is somewhat related to the way that this co-pilot and pilot experience. In my opinion, that's why George Lucas ruined Star Wars, because people is the god of all nerds, and people were too afraid to tell him, maybe your Star Wars is a little childish. Sorry about the prequels. I hope I'm not throwing any jabs. Maybe half of your listeners will hate me after this, but why did I get into Star Wars? But I'm a nerd. I like this stuff. But going back to the idea of partner, your partner, you depend on them to be an awesome co-pilot. Now, the question is, when you don't have partners, even if you do have partners, how do you make your employees your partners? And you make your employees your partners by building that trust. And that is your responsibility. If somebody comes to you and gives you a comment, sir, boss, Sharon, I think you're doing something wrong. Here's what I think you're doing. You start shouting at him. That's it. You lost trust. Done. It will take, if you really care about trust and you're working on it, it'll take you 3 months to recover. If you're being an asshole to somebody, right, randomly, and other people, everybody that heard you not treating that person well, you're losing that trust. You want your employees to take risks. I don't know about you, Dean, but I build my company on mistakes, right? Why am I not offering this opportunity for my employees? And I need to create an environment where my employees feel comfortable taking risks. So the moment, yes.
So you got me at hello, and
yes,
a great characteristic to have in any sort of relationship. We could even say that in a marriage, right, or in a friendship.
Yes.
What are the special barriers or opportunities in a virtual environment to create that kind of trusting partnership? How do we do that when I have a 2x2 two-dimensional screen of you and I can't interact with you the same way I would if you were in the room? What are the challenges, and how do we build that kind of partnership trust?
So first of all, what brings it to remote? It doesn't necessarily bring it to remote, although it feels like when it comes to remote work, the managers have the responsibility to put extra effort because they see the damage. If they don't manage properly, they see the damage much quicker. In a physical office, when you manage people badly, the damage goes slowly, and eventually you don't know how you got to that stage. And in remote, if you neglect your people, your company just crashes instantaneously and you need to fix it. And if you don't build trust, you're just going to be working by yourself and you don't know what happened. And if you're not going to focus on culture, you're going to have the most disconnected people, and remote people already disconnected. You can't afford that. Well, in an office environment, decline is very slow. The only huge benefit of going remote is the limitation of distraction. Thus, you immediately start with people that are significantly more productive, or it's easier to teach them how to be more productive. And you're also disconnected from the usual bureaucratic obstacles that come with the company. You can start fresh, right? In an office environment, maybe it's not normal to go and start talking to everybody about their kids and animals and pets and cultures and fun when you're their boss. Also, in an office environment, it's not everybody can have the coolest working environment that one have. Look, in my office, I have a stand-up table and a beautiful oak stand-up table. I have a walking treadmill. I have a beer fridge. I have this wonderful 200 years old house office. Well, that's my privilege, but the other things are not necessarily privilege. This experience in an office on walking on a treadmill, while having a stand-up table and an old school oak stand-up table, I'm going to look like a fool, right? And you can't have that, but in a remote environment, you can. You don't feel so uncomfortable. It gives you the opportunity to really build the best working experience for you. And then the advice goes for both remote managers and regular managers, but you have an edge here. Less bureaucracy and immediately start with more productivity.
That's an interesting point. I hadn't thought about that in remote work, you can really kind of personalize the work environment, much to what you said with your house, your fridge, and whatever. That actually makes a lot of sense, which we may not be able to do, when we're in an
I mean, all your listeners should imagine this guy sitting there typing while walking on the treadmill, waving to everybody. It looks ridiculous. It looks like some comedy. Yet this is my life, right? And somehow when people saw me, I have this cool fold treadmill, right, which I found on Kickstarter, and it makes me think better and makes me and it gets me off my butt and do some good stuff. And it's not strange when I talk to other people on Zoom, and I do that to my other employees. It's like, because some of my employees bouncing on their balls and I walk on the treadmill and it's all cool, but in a real office environment, you're going to look like lunatics.
Right. No, and I think your point's really well taken about this whole being able to customize your environment. And there's so many other things. I don't want to get down a rabbit hole about how you can best use Zoom and not get too close to the camera and, all the technology that would help in making the connection better. You started off by saying 2.53 was the number of hours in a day, 8 hours.
You're still stuck on that, I see. Okay, let's go for it.
It's on my little post-it note. The question is, one, what is considered productive? What is productivity? Let's define that. And then the second thing is, what is the number, if you know it? Maybe because you're being asked to we didn't prep this, right? But how productive are people in remote work relative to the people who are at work in a physical brick and mortar place? Like, is it 5 hours? Is it 3.5? I mean, what's the comparison?
Okay, so that's great because there's multiple research done that in different industries. So the research that they done actually on travel agent, I don't know why travel agent, but that's what they did on the productivity increase was 30%.
If you went remote.
If you went remote. I don't have enough numbers at this moment. Okay. I do have some base statistic, but I do remember the research on travel agencies. Some of them literally double in productivity, right? When done right. But also it's not, you got to keep in mind that in remote environments, still those bad toxic managers are still there.
Yes,
they're still distracting. Yes. It is a perfect opportunity to get more to what we call asynchronous work, which is not very acceptable in an office environment. But if you run a well-balanced asynchronous work, you can get to 6-7 out of the 8 hours of pure production.
Is that what your thought is, or at least your gut feeling is that you can get?
Yeah, I I'm
Yeah.
always transparent when I have the science, and when I don't have the science,
Yeah.
I don't have the science in me. But if you don't bug a coder, if you just stop bothering them, they can just sit there and code all day.
Right.
Right? They can just produce all day. Especially one of the magical things, by the way, we were talking about remote. One of the magical things about the remote work environment that the introverts are over delivering. This is a very, very unique. I'm opening a big can of worm right now.
Great, though, because I think that's what I was been trying to get to, and you just put language to, is that the work that requires introvert personalities, because we're dealing with a individual doing work by themselves. They chose that for a reason, maybe because their style is, I would rather work alone. So I chose coding other than being a salesperson, for example, is more conducive. But then I would assume that the flip is also true, that those who are more extrovert might need and be more productive overall and mentally healthy if they had more social face-to-face interaction.
So in my book, I do talk about the introverts and the extroverts. So to start off, the introverts, by definition, are known to produce a lot more, right? They listen to, they pay attention to detail more. They produce more. They're great workers. And in an office environment, we're literally destroying them. Sometimes because all they want is to sit in quiet and not to be bugged. And this could be some of your biggest producers. And an office environment, we are damaging them, right? All they want to do is, first of all, they feel intimidated by the extroverts that are taking over the room. They're making, so it already has a level of toxicity. They get distracted that they don't like to be. They just want to sit in a quiet area and create that product that you are paying them to do. That's the introverts. The extroverts, as I myself, believe it or not, how did I get into the remote industry? I don't know, because I love people and I love to socialize. And I'm just this loud, obnoxious Israeli that loves to interact with people. But for me, there is a trick to manage it really, really well, right? I still do believe that I produce a lot more where it comes to, because as an extrovert, I get distracted a lot more. So when you give me when you give me a non-destructive amount of hours, I can produce all the product stuff. But it also gives me time to plan my social experience. And that requires a little bit of discipline. So I actually recommend to everybody, introvert and extroverts, but of course it's more effective for extroverts, that you need to take at least an hour or two a week and just research and book your social experiences as if they were business meetings.
I agree with that.
Right. You have to get out of the house. First of all, introverts and extroverts, still, you have to get out of the house. You have to get out of your work environment, which is one of the sickness when it comes to remote work, that people just get comfortable being at home and being homebodies. And you need to literally say that at 5:30, I'm going for a drink with this person. And at that Tuesday, I'm going to the gym. And Wednesday, I'm going to a dance class. And, I used to in the office go for lunch with my friends, right? Let's book let's book that lunch. I mean, especially if it's just remote in the same city, there's no reason why the same lunch cannot happen and that same coffee does not happen. But people don't make it happen because remote makes you lazy with your social experience. Doesn't make you lazy with the work, but it makes you lazy with your social experience.
I had a conversation with somebody just recently about this. Like, no, we're getting together. We're going to actually socialize. Haven't seen you in person other than just normal, meetings that we have to do. But no, let's go and expand that into a social interaction. And later this person thanked me for, making that happen because, the introvert gets sucked into that pattern. So on the flip side of the strategy, on the extrovert, so I remember another group of dealing with around strategy and so forth. Like we had some of the key people in the organization were all extroverts, big picture, very outgoing, could see the forest of the trees, visionary, right? The feedback was, you need more introverts. You need more people to execute on the work that you have dreamed and cooked up. and you need to get out of their way so they can do it. You're constantly distracting them from doing the
Constantly
work.
distracted.
And I can totally see that. So I'm sort of seeing that the extrovert has this natural tendency towards strategy and vision and so forth, which we need. But in a productivity perspective, if we were to put that metric back in them, you might say, well, how productive are they? Well, they're not really generating anything. What they're generating is ideas and vision and a forward movement. The actual productivity is not in their bailiwick. It's for somebody else to do. They're the ones who are going to execute on it. What do you think?
Yeah. That's kind of the story. Look,
Cool.
there is the only weakness with remote work is the social experience.
Yeah.
This is it. I mean, I don't believe that anybody would do worse working in their optimal working environment. It's just many of us need to have people around it, need to have an environment that you look around, that you see this is working environment. But again, at the end of the day, this delusional thinking that somehow the office produces more work, the science has proven that it doesn't. And when you're a superstar producer, like some of those big shot lawyers and accountant, they all said they double their billables. Everything is great. The only reason why, let's say, some of the big law firms asking their senior partners to come back because they need to mentor the new guys to become the next workaholics, right? That is a real reason to come back. But maybe this workaholic lawyers and finance people is not healthy in the first place. I don't want to do it.
To your point, Sharon, you were saying that may not also be, from a sustainability or longevity perspective, even healthy to do that. So let me ask you, just kind of like as we kind of wrap this up a bit, talk about a little bit about your book, and you got a podcast. How do people follow you? Give us your pitch, man.
Okay. Well, so first of all, please, anybody who wants to learn as a worker, as a manager, I personally feel that I created one of the most intuitive, but also one of the funnest and funniest management book for remote workers out there. I really tried to make it fun. I feel that management books out there are so boring and so serious, right? So I made it fun. It's an easy read, both on Audible, on audiobook, called Surviving Remote Work. Yes, you get to see me, the cartoon version of me in shorts, which is great. And also, if you want to get more information, especially as a remote worker, we have the biggest online publication called Think Remote. But most important, if you are looking for amazing techies and amazing finance people that not only are magicians with the art skills, but also will integrate into part of your integrate into your culture, into your processes, and you need them fast, and you can't necessarily afford this. Here, you're going to be able to find amazing talent at about half the salary that you pay in North America. They will integrate as part of your culture. Yes, there are amazing people, and I know that it sounds like you're getting your cake and eating too, but by hiring international with us, consider that we are the first remote recruitment agency and been doing it for so many years. We're able to deliver those unique talent for you within 2 weeks at an incredible value. Just hit me up. The website is Distant Job. If you have any requirements for techies or accountants, exceptional ones at a great value, we're here to deliver.
Software developers too, right? That's part of your niche.
Yeah, techies, software developers, programmers, etc. Yes.
Fantastic. Great. Well, wonderful. Sharon, it's been really nice to meet you. I feel like, if I lived in Montreal, we should go out and have a beer.
You bet your ass off we should. This is, I'm feeling a little thirsty right now. I'm not going to lie
right?
to you.
Well, what time is it there? It's got to be, 3:34 or what?
It's, it's a happy hour. It's happy hour somewhere. It's definitely good times.
If I get over to Montreal, I'll look you up. And this is true. I had a conversation with a guy, and he said that he was from the Cotswolds area of England. And I said, "You're kidding. My wife and I are planning a trip to go visit that area in September and October." And he goes, well, come on by for dinner. So we're going to come and have dinner with the guy. And we met on the
Love
bus.
it.
I may be knocking on your door, my friend.
Dean, please come. Let's have a beer. I'm all about that. That would be awesome.
That'd be great. Well, it's been a lot of fun talking to you.
Thank you, Dean. It's been a real pleasure.
Thank you for listening to The Business of Intuition. If you enjoyed the show, please subscribe, rate, and review on Apple Podcasts, Google, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts. If you'd like to learn more about Dean or Mission Facilitators Leadership, go to mfileadership.com. That's mfileadership.com.